In this video, I'll repair a crack in this old dining chair. It still has the original finish on it, which isn't in great shape, so I'm not really concerned about making it pretty, just want to make it functional. Here's where it broke. And this is why you shouldn't lean back in your chair, by the way, especially if it's 50 years old. This part of the chair is made up of 3 or 4 pieces of wood that were glued together and then carved into this shape of the back of the chair at the factory. It broke right along the original glue line between these 2 pieces of wood. So because it broke right along that glue line, it should be a pretty easy fix. It's a pretty clean break. The first thing I did was to apply some wax around the break, and I did this in the hopes that the glue wouldn't stick to it very well, so when I went to clean up any glue squeeze out later on, it would come off easier. And then I took this little wedge and put it into the crack to open it up so that I could get the glue syringe in there and shoot some glue into the crack. I put a lot of glue in there, and I was hoping that it would work its way all the way down to the bottom of the crack. I used a utility knife blade to try to work the glue down, try to get it down as far as possible. And then I switched sides with the wedge so that I could get the syringe into the other side of the crack. And then I switched to a narrower tip on the syringe so that I could get it into the lower portion of the crack. Trying to get as much glue in there as far down as I could. Once I got as much glue into there as I could, it was time to clamp it up. And when you're trying to clamp 2 surfaces that aren't parallel to each other, it helps to have a clamp where at least one end will pivot, like this one, or this one. It will conform to the non-parallel surfaces better than something like this, which doesn't pivot at all. The next day, I took off the clamps. It looked good, but I wasn't confident that I got glue all the way down into the bottom of the crack. It was just too narrow down there to get the syringe in. It probably would have been fine as it was, but I decided to be safe and add a little bit more strength by driving a screw into the lower part of the crack. I began by drilling a pilot hole for the screw. And then I used a countersink bit so that the head of the screw would sit below the surface of the wood. Before I put the screw in, I used a little chapstick on the end of it just to lubricate it so it would go in easier. And candle wax or a bar of soap would also work just as well. But even with the lubrication, the screw broke in half. So now I had half the screw stuck in there, and I had to get that out somehow. So I got out a Dremel tool, and I used a bit that has a very small tip that will grind away material. So I used that to grind away the wood around the screw until I had enough room where I could get a pair of pliers in there and pull out the screw. And this took longer than I thought it would. I had to grind away a lot of wood to get that screw out. By the time I removed enough wood to get that screw out, I had a hole that was big enough to fit a dowel into. So I decided that instead of filling it and then putting another screw in there, I would just glue a dowel in, and that would serve the same purpose. First thing I did was to just clean out the hole a little bit with a drill bit that was the appropriate size for the dowel. And then I put some glue in the hole and the dowel, and then just hammered it in. The dowel will go deep enough so that it will be glued into both of the pieces of wood where the split was. So that will hold it together and provide the strength that I was looking for with the screw. And to top off the hole, I glued in this button plug. Once the glue was dry, I came back and again with the Dremel tool, this time though with a sander attachment on it, I just carved down that plug a little bit. I wanted to get it flush with the surface of the wood. And then I took it down some more with a chisel. And also some sandpaper. And once that was done, I took some gel stain and just dabbed it on, just to try to blend it in a little bit. But I wasn't too concerned about matching the original finish because, for one thing, this will be hidden by the seat once the seat is put on. And also, the rest of the finish isn't really in great shape. And this is my own chair from my house, so I wasn't concerned about making it look perfect. I'm okay with its imperfections. And that's all there was to it. And here's where the plug is behind the seat. Thanks for watching.